Michigan football is in trouble, and they've got the USC Trojans coming in next. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and a play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. You know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. So Michigan's in trouble, let's be honest. And by the way, is Indiana sneaky good as we're looking at the other teams rising in the Big Ten? Plus, we'll have our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. So hang tight, see if your favorite player or team was mentioned there. But Michigan football is out of time to fix its quarterback problem because the USC Trojans and the rest of the Big Ten schedule are coming. They're coming. Quarterback isn't the only problem for Sherrone Moore's football team. You know, let's revisit here the last 3 weeks in a bottle here, if you were. You know, it was almost understandable. Week 1, season opener, Fresno State. Took Michigan about 3.5 quarters to get rolling in that game. I mean, they opened with a new quarterback. They had a completely new offensive line. Over a dozen NFL caliber players left and had to be replaced. New head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. All right, so maybe a few hiccups. But then they looked like themselves there in the fourth quarter, at least midway through the fourth quarter in the Fresno game, and they won. All right. Quarterback play still wasn't good in that game. The running game wasn't that good in that game. Wolverines offense was not vertical at all, and the defense was gashed at times. The one thing we did learn is that Michigan's kicking game is good. That's what we took out of week 1 plus a W for Michigan. Now, week 2, Texas Longhorns came to Ann Arbor. Michigan fan doesn't want to see that anytime soon. Texas is presently the number 1 team in the country, and Michigan is clearly not at that level anymore, not even close. That game was basically over by halftime. Many of the same problems that we saw in week 1 presented themselves against Texas, but they were magnified. But the good news was that the Texas loss came in a non-conference game, and all the Wolverines' goals still remain ahead of them. All right, there was still time, still things to do, still goals to check off the list. Then Saturday, this past weekend, Michigan beat Arkansas State by 10 points, 28-18. Now, granted, it was 28-3 at one time, but a Sun Belt Conference team shouldn't come into the big house and come within 10 points. It just shouldn't. And starting quarterback Davis Warren threw 3 interceptions against a lesser defense. The problems are continuing. Now, the one bright spot in that game was Khalil Mullings. He rushed for a career-high 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. By the way, those were Michigan's first 2 rushing touchdowns of the season in week 3. That's not Michigan football. Mullings, by the way, surprisingly, seems to be emerging as the team's go-to running back instead of Donovan Edwards. But Warren, back at quarterback, let's talk about it. He seems to be in a rut in the passing game, right? Nothing is downfield deep. Offense is short. It's dink and dunk, plus the interceptions. Alex Orji did come in this weekend. He threw a touchdown pass. And you everydayers know our thoughts about Jack Tuttle, who may be another option soon. And tight end Colston Loveland was hurt this weekend. So things aren't looking great for Michigan right now. And the pollsters have noticed, even though they won, they dropped another spot in the AP Top 25 poll that just came out down to 18. That was one behind Notre Dame, a team that lost at home to Northern Illinois. Got that one on the resume. To make matters worse, the Wolverines are not playing Fresno State anymore. They're not playing Arkansas State anymore. The 11th ranked USC Trojans are coming to Ann Arbor this week. And this is a game they've had circled on their calendar for a long time, ever since they were coming into the Big Ten. And to make matters worse still, USC's defense is not a walk in the park anymore, right? They've improved. They're still not the best, but they've improved to the point where I think they can keep Michigan's offensive attack stuck in neutral. I really do. And USC's offense, of course, is led by quarterback Miller Moss and head coach Lincoln Riley. And they're coming off a bye this past week, so they've had an extra week to prepare for Wink Martindale's defense, which has not been spectacular for most of the season so far. In addition to USC being on the schedule, Michigan has a Washington team coming in that has a really good running game, and it's a rematch of the national championship. Now, I know Washington, they lost to Washington State this past weekend in the Apple Cup game. They probably should have won, shot themselves in the foot, but they have a lot of explosiveness about them. Again, they really had a lot of penalties and just stupid plays and had to settle for field goals instead of touchdowns in that game. But otherwise, there's some there. There's some more there with the Washington offense than there is the Michigan offense right now. And these two teams are going to go face to face in a bit. Then the Wolverines are on the road at Illinois. Well, Illinois has had a couple of impressive wins lately. In fact, they're ranked now. That's not going to be a gimme. So, and then the Michigan State game's coming up. Look, you never know what's going to happen there. I mean, they got Aiden Childs, who's an up and down, very inconsistent, but they can move the ball. They can do some things. And with that rivalry, I know Michigan fan doesn't want to hear it. Michigan State fan does. Anything can happen in that game. I know it hasn't in the past couple of years, but up until then, anything can happen. And it can happen again because Michigan's come back down to earth a little bit. And we're not done going through the schedule here. They still got a top 10 Oregon team that's going to be coming. And you know, based on what I saw this weekend, Michigan would not beat Indiana right now. Indiana looked fabulous against UCLA on the road in the Rose Bowl. By the way, more on the Hoosiers in a moment. And that wasn't a slap on Indiana. They look like they're for real. And then I haven't even mentioned Ohio State. So there, as you can see, there's a lot of challenging games coming up on the Michigan schedule. They don't have time to kind of work things out against a Fresno State and an Arkansas State. Those days are over. All right. The conference is coming. And right now, Michigan does not look good. We thought, I'll be the first to mention, I talked many times this summer about Michigan on this podcast, and I said, hey, I think they're going to be better than people think. Because a lot of people thought what we're seeing right now is what they were going to be. I thought, no, they got a lot of talented players still on that team. I think they can pull it together. But so far, I'm not convinced. Hey, it takes a big man to admit if I was wrong. Now, it's still early. Maybe we'll be right before it's all said and done. But we're out of time. This is the week. They got to come out. They got to win that USC game, or they could get a lot of losses moving forward. Anyway, being out of time and the hard part of the schedule coming up, I'll hear from you, Wolverine fans, no doubt about it. You guys are diehards. I'll give you credit for that. There are a lot of haters out there too. I'll hear a lot of comments too, back and forth. On our comments on YouTube, fire away. Let's take a listen. We'll have all those you guys have at each other. Have fun with that. You can also reach me on Twitter at Talk Big Ten, or at Talk Big Ten, the number 10. And our website, you see the scroll on the bottom if you're watching on video, talkbig10.com. That's where we put all of our podcasts, and you can buy your favorite shirts and hats from your favorite schools all across the Big Ten right there. Talkbig10.com. We'd like to ask you all to subscribe. If you are new to us, just checking us out, we're getting new people all the time. So please go ahead and subscribe. Just click the little subscribe button there, and then it's free. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. It never will come back, and there's no like charge after 6 months, anything like that. Subscribe for free, and then share with a friend that you know likes Big Ten that maybe doesn't know we're out here every day. Subscribe and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way, you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Speaking a moment ago of the Indiana Hoosiers, they're opening a lot of eyes around the Big Ten. You know, we're kind of looking for those other tier teams right, below Ohio State. We agree they're at the top. You know, Oregon trying to figure it out. Southern Cal on the rise. Nebraska. Indiana? Anybody? We'll discuss that. Plus, we'll talk about every single team of the Big Ten that played this weekend in a lightning round fashion, everything that took place. It was a very interesting weekend. We'll have all that coming up here in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. I'll tell you about 5-Hour Energy. 5-Hour Energy. It fixes tired fast. It's one of my favorite lines in advertising. 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast. You're tired. You got to make a long drive. You got to work after a long, big, full lunch and sit back at your desk and kind of nod off a little bit. 5-Hour Energy. Boom. Energy. Or, hey, end of the day, you still want to get a workout in, but you don't have the energy? Hit 5-Hour Energy. It's convenient. It's a little bottle. Comes with it. Great flavors. And by the way, you could choose multiple flavors when you order. And you get like watermelon and tropical burst and grape and berry. Flavor for anyone, whatever you like. It's all there and you can mix and match. So go to 5-Hour Energy. That's the number 5, 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This order is only valid through the end of September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. That's 5hourenergy.com. Thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there that make us go. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten wherever you get this podcast. Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, Talk Big Ten, number 10, talkbig10.com. All right, 1 week after the Indiana Hoosiers rolled up 77 points on Western Illinois, people were saying, well, it was against Western Illinois. They're horrible. No big deal. Except it was a big deal. First of all, this is the most points the Hoosiers have scored since 1901. And then they rolled into the Rose Bowl last week and absolutely destroyed UCLA this weekend in front of their fans in the Bruins Big Ten debut. First-year head coach Curt Cignetti has a 5-year quarterback there, Kurtis Rourke, who just transferred into Indiana from Ohio. No hyperbole. He's the best pocket passer I've ever seen at IU. All right? Some of you know I went to IU. I've seen a lot of IU football. Best. Really good, under control, great decision maker, runs the RPO perfectly, great arm, very underrated. The country's going to discover who this kid is. First-year head coach Curt Cignetti, very pleased with him, likes the fact that he's experienced. He threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdown passes against the Bruins on Saturday night, and he's got weapons to throw to. The Hoosiers come with a running game. Their defense has great players at all 3 levels, line, linebacker, and secondary. This is a pretty good team. This is a serious football team. So I was serious a few minutes ago when I said that they'd beat Michigan right now. Based on what I saw this weekend, they would beat Michigan right now. They play later. Other Big Ten teams in action over the weekend, some thoughts I have, I'll share with you. You can share them with me as well. Nebraska, like they had Northern Illinois. They were going to win that game, but they won 34-3. Dylan Raiola continues to impress, continues to grow, continues to get better each and every week. The Huskers scored on 5 of their first 6 possessions this weekend. And Nebraska, remember all those penalties in the second half against Colorado 2 weekends ago? Only 4 penalties all night. Matt Rule's getting this team dialed in. He did have an interception, so it was a turnover. But, I mean, through 3 games, they're +4 in the turnover margin. That was their problem last year. That kept them out of a bowl game. A lot better now. Nebraska is a team to watch. Been saying that all summer. Going to continue saying that throughout the fall. Northwestern beat Eastern Illinois 31-7. Jack Lausch made his first start at quarterback for the Wildcats because they hadn't thrown a touchdown pass all year. So they had to make a change. Problem solved. He threw 2 of them. And one of them to A.J. Henning, who had 117 yards receiving. So good job there. Maryland won 27-13 over Virginia. Ty Felton. This guy can play. 9 catches, 117 yards and a touchdown. Quarterback Billy Edwards Jr. threw a touchdown and ran for another. Early on Saturday at noon, the big noon game, Wisconsin, not so good against Alabama. I mean, it's Alabama. They're at the highest level. Wisconsin's trying to figure out where they are early in year 2 for Luke Fickell. 42-10, the final score there. That was a tough one at Camp Randall. Jalen Milroe accounted for 5 touchdowns for the Crimson Tide, but Wisconsin quarterback and Miami transfer Tyler Van Dyke left the game with a pretty serious injury, a leg injury, and did not return. Braden Locke stepped in, going 13 of 26 for 125 yards and a touchdown to Will Pauling. It was Wisconsin's most lopsided home loss since 2008. Now, Oregon and Oregon State. We love time. In fact, we're going to talk more about Oregon in tomorrow's podcast. Tell your friends. Tell your Duck friends. We're going to be doing that. Oregon won, beat Oregon State 49-14. A couple of storylines here. First of all, 128th meeting between these two. They usually used to play back in the day when they're both in the Pac-12 around Thanksgiving, but it's the first time they've ever played in September. This game was 22-14 at the half. This was a close game. And the storyline was continuing that Oregon could win games, but they couldn't cover the spread with these huge blowouts that they were supposed to have. They've had some closer games. Well, they ended up pulling away. Dylan Gabriel, 291 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for another. Oregon had 546 yards of offense here. So Dan Lanning says it feels like the team played to its standard finally. So again, we're going to talk about the Ducks in tomorrow's Locked On Big Ten podcast. Told you about the lopsided game at Wisconsin. There was an even bigger lopsided game at Purdue. Notre Dame coming in after that horrible home loss to Northern Illinois. Rolled into West Lafayette, and Purdue had a bye week to get ready for this. 66-7 was the Fighting Irish win. This game was over early. Most lopsided loss in Purdue's 137-year history of their football program. Notre Dame rushed for 362 yards and 6 touchdowns. Yikes. Illinois, a team to keep an eye on. 30-9 winners over Central Michigan. This is coming off their win over 19th ranked Kansas the week before. Illinois is now ranked in the top 25. Luke Altmaier, 242 yards and 2 touchdowns to Pat Bryant, who caught 7 passes for 120 yards. And Illinois kicker Ethan Maksulski, he was a transfer from Texas A&M, kicked a school record 59-yarder at the end of the half. That was pretty cool. See if that made my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend coming up in just a minute. Michigan State did beat Prairie View A&M. They should have beat Prairie View A&M. They were favored by 40.5. They only won 40-0. Didn't cover. Aiden Childs, a touchdown pass. He ran for another touchdown. But the story here, Charles Brantley returning an interception over 100 yards for a score. School record. Good job. Sparty had 2 touchdowns called back in this game for penalties. Lots of penalties they got to clean up. 11 of them for 88 yards. Minnesota, nobody's scoring on the Golden Gophers 2 weeks in a row. 27-0 over Nevada. Darius Taylor, who we're big fans of on this podcast, ran for 124 yards, rushed for 2 touchdowns, caught another one. One of his 2 rushing touchdowns was an 80-yarder. Max Brosmer, quarterback, 16 of 25, 191 yards and a touchdown. Kerry Brown had 2 interceptions on this defense that threw the shutout. Ethan Robinson had an interception. Gophers' second straight shutout. First time they've shut out back-to-back opponents since 1962. They got Iowa next. You know, that's going to be a low-scoring game on both sides. Looking forward to that. We'll preview that later on this week. Talking about the Apple Cup, of course, Washington upset by Washington State 24-19. That was at Lumen Field in Seattle. Huge story of this game. Washington State had a huge goal line stand with about a minute to go. Will Rogers did throw for 314 yards, and the Huskies' Giles Jackson had 8 catches for 162 yards and a 31-yard touchdown. But the Huskies had to settle for 4 field goals instead of touchdowns. They were getting close and settling for field goals instead of getting 7. Washington State kept hanging around, and the Huskies got called for 16 penalties, 135 yards. That's a lot of yards. They got to get that buttoned up. I mentioned Iowa a minute ago. They played Troy. Interesting story here. So Iowa wins 38-21. They were trailing 14-10 at the half to Troy. Caleb Johnson, another great day on the ground, 173 yards, couple touchdowns, the rally in the second half. 3 straight 100-yard games to start the season. Cade McNamara was completing passes, but he wasn't creating touchdowns. 19-23, that's good. 176 yards, no touchdowns. No interceptions. That's good. 9 straight completions at one point. Ethan Hurkett on the defense had 2 sacks, and Jamari Harris had an interception for the Hawkeyes. All right. So that's a quick lightning round. That's as quick as we can go. Recapping everybody. Got a lot of teams to cover. And there were teams that had bye weeks this week. They're back in action for week 4. So we're looking forward to all that. All right. On Mondays, we always like to have a feature in our third segment. On Mondays, we do my top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend. We'll see who made the list. We'll compare notes. All that coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel. FanDuel makes sports a lot more fun, and they're fun to begin with. We talk about FanDuel all the time. America's #1 sports book. Got something a little special here for you here now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers, bet $5, get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market NFL game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sports book. Monday night, Tonight, I like the Falcons at the Eagles. I like the Eagles at -5.5. The over-under is 45.5. I think it goes over there. I like the Mets over the Nationals and MLB, and the Dodgers over the Braves. Again, that is go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, it's time to post our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. And this is in no particular order, just a top 10. Well, there's always a lot of great things to choose from. So we'll put them here one at a time on the screen and see if they made your list as well. All right, here we go. So if you're on audio only, we'll describe them in detail for you as best we can. Started off at number 10. I got Northwestern's A.J. Henning with those 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. So we finally had some touchdown passes at Northwestern versus Eastern Illinois. Jack Lausch in for Mike Wright at quarterback. 31-7 was the final score in that one. Meanwhile, at number 9, I wanted to mention Maryland Ty Felton. He's a go-to guy there for the Terps. 9 catches, 117 yards versus Virginia in a 27-13 win. Elsewhere, I want to mention the Oregon offense against Oregon State in that 49-14 win. 546 yards of total offense. Again, they really got it rolling in that game against Oregon State. Maybe Dan Lanning and Oregon's team is fixed. Maybe they're not shooting themselves in the foot, penalties, and that's a lot of offense. That's a lot. If they do that now moving forward, and that was against an Oregon State team that was ready for them. Again, played them tough in the first half. Hostile crowd, still put up the big numbers in that game. Want to mention Illinois' kicker, Ethan Moxulski. He's the one I mentioned earlier from Texas A&M, transferred in. School record, 59-yard field goal at the horn at the first half against Central Michigan. That's pretty good. If you got that in your offensive arsenal, makes coaching a lot easy for Brett Bielema. Want to mention the Golden Gophers defense, the 2 straight shutouts, put them in our top 10. First time since 1962. They've been playing lesser schools now. This was Nevada last week in 27-0. But we'll see. They step it up and take on an Iowa team that's not going to be explosive offensively. They're not going to throw a shutout, I don't think. But they're going to be good defensively. I want to mention Dylan Raiola for Nebraska, 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, he had 1 turnover. That's it, though. At this time last year, Nebraska had a lot more turnovers. Only 4 penalties. Matt Rule getting this team dialed in for the conference slate coming up. Michigan, Khalil Mullings. We spent a lot of time talking about Michigan's troubles. There are some good things. Khalil Mullings is emerging from the running backs room and doing pretty well. Career high 153 yards and a couple of touchdowns this past weekend. Donovan Edwards didn't have a bad game either. But Mullings is really kind of stepping it up there. Let's see here. Iowa's Caleb Johnson. I wanted to mention him. The 173 yards he got and 2 touchdowns, helping his team come back in the second half. As I mentioned a little while ago, this is 3 straight 100-yard games to start the season. That's awesome. And Cade McNamara with the 9 straight completions was pretty good. I mentioned earlier Ethan Herkett with the 2 sacks. So a lot of good things on both sides of the ball for Iowa in this game. Want to give them a shout out in our top 10 Big Ten observations. At number 2, I got Michigan State's Charles Brantley, who returned an interception, a school record 100 yards for the Spartans. That was awesome. And I will put Indiana quarterback Kurtis Rourke, who threw for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns against UCLA on the road in front of the Bruins fans, all excited about being part of the Big Ten and at the Rose Bowl. The moment was not too big for Kurtis Rourke. This is a good quarterback. This is a really, really good quarterback. All right, that's our Big Ten top 10 observations from the weekend. What did I miss? I mean, we can only put 10 in. Maybe I had something at 11 that you liked that should have been in. Let me know. Hit me up with a message on YouTube, if you will. All right. There are many ways for you to interact with this podcast. Always. First of all, you can hit us up on Twitter or follow us there at Talk Big Ten, number 10. Our website, talkbig10, 10.com, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there. This will go there. We put them chronologically, so you can go catch up to the last few I've done. We went live over the weekend. We always go live over the weekend. Went live after the Indiana UCLA game late Saturday night. By the way, So far this season, we've gone live after that late NBC game. Did after the Michigan-Fresno game, did after the Colorado-Nebraska game. This upcoming week, we're going to do a little earlier, early evening East Coast. The 3:30 game with Michigan and USC, when that's over, final whistle, 6:30, 7 o'clock Eastern time, we'll go live on our YouTube channel. So just a heads up there. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com as well. Before you go, if you don't mind, subscribe. You just click the button and it's free forever. Subscribe and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten. That helps us a lot. We really appreciate it. You'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Feel free to go check out another one of our podcasts, like I said, maybe over the weekend. And also give a second listen to our friends at Locked On College Football. They have a podcast there too. It's all part of the Locked On family. Locked On College Football, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's going to be a big week. Looking forward to this a lot. And tomorrow we're going to focus on the Oregon Ducks and whether they're back, whether they've got it dialed in now for the rest of their season, and whether they will still compete with Ohio State at the top of the conference. We'll look into that. We're going to start doing a deep dive on a lot of teams, whether they can be that next team to fight with Ohio State, who we think will definitely be fighting for the Big Ten championship at the end. So let us know your opinion on that too. Hit us up. In the meantime, can't wait till we talk next time. Thanks for joining us today. I never take it for granted. Always enjoy it. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten. We'll talk to you next time.